Meanderings on Arcagi. Seems like all of human cognition, our capacity for abstraction and reasoning, of which there are probably 9 billion definitions, are definitely far from perfect. In noodling through ways to think about approaching either paper or pseudocode for the current state of the competition, it occurs that even our highest brain functions, of which we are often most proud, justly, perhaps, to some extent, discounting lottery of birth winnings and inheritances, etc., are partly bounded by constraining reasoning abstractions such as uncertainty, doubt, skepticism, etc. How ought we think about emulating these vital aspects of abstraction and reasoning, either in code or via increasingly precise and nuanced prompts engaging with existing Type 1 synthetic intelligence? Is it unlikely that this approach is somehow, or to some extent required, for lack of a better word, by definition? That human comprehensible, Type 2 cognition can only be derived, to some extent, via Type 1 interactions? That is to wonder, is Type 2 cognition somehow path-dependent upon Type 1, and if so to what extent and via which causal combinatorial vectors? Is this where the principle of embeddedness, of which roboticists remind us is so important to thinking, perceiving via human understandable sensory experience, comes into play? To the extent that any of these ridiculous thoughts are even in the ballpark of useful preliminary pseudocognition on the topic of how to approach the engineering of robust AGI, how do they persuade, if at all, a development process that seems destined toward eternally venturing toward the next horizon? Can uncertainty and doubt, ironically, also serve as forms of encouraging, optimistic, skepticism? What is the unlikelihood that Type 2 cognition can or even must be strictly constructed by prompts, rather than even a single line of side-loaded code? Maybe it's 100%. Maybe it's non-zero. Maybe just zero. How do we explore and define, computationally, linguistically, and to some extent empirically, the range of human comprehensible cognition, et al.? If not a single reader can follow this narrative, does that make it an example of some form of non-human, subhuman, or human-adjacent cognition? Open to collaboration on an ARC paper, or at least a tiny site mention, for anyone who finds any of this meandering on approaches to engineering coherent meandering thought, potentially productive as a prompt to your human embodied actual intelligence, victory hand,